All right, welcome everybody coming in from the waiting room there. Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon. Darren is your instructor there on screen. He'll be teaching us how to crochet the Melrose shawl today. There's his nice sample all done up. We won't make it through the whole shawl in class. We don't have enough time for that, sadly, but we'll go over the pattern and show you where you might have trouble and how to do a couple of the special stitches. As a reminder, this class is being recorded, so you can watch this back starting tomorrow afternoon on michaels.com/classes or on the Michaels YouTube channel. So you can stop and rewind as much as you need to then. If you need to ask questions during class, you can put those into the Zoom chat. I will answer them there myself. My name's Claire, hi. Or I will pass them on to Darren and he can demonstrate for us on screen. And with all of that out of the way, we'll let Darren get started.
All right, welcome to class. Today, we are going to review the pattern and go over the techniques that you will need to make this shawl, the Melrose Shawl. It's a free pattern downloadable from lionbrand.com. So, if you need to print a copy, if you want to share it with a friend, you can always get a free copy there. So if we want to go ahead and switch the camera to the view of my hands, we can go ahead and jump in and get started with all the excitement. Right. Today in class, I'm using this yarn called TRUBOO, and it is a bamboo yarn. So it's great for spring and summer. It's lightweight. It comes in lots of great colors. I chose these the blue, the gray, and the white because they're colors that I like, but there's such a variety of great colors. It's by Lion Brand, and you can get this on lionbrand.com or on michaels.com, and there's lots of great sales, so you can always watch for that. So let me move these out of the way. Get my ends ready so I can use them as I need them. Try to get them positioned right. So I don't know if you have the pattern, but here's what the pattern looks like. It's printed up. You need 3 balls of one color, 1 ball of a second color, and 1 ball of a third color, a large-eyed blunt needle, and a crochet hook size 7 or 4.5 millimeters. This is all you need. It does give a gauge or a stitch explanation, and we're going to be covering these a little bit later on as we get to them in the pattern. And a little bit about the shawl. It's worked in one piece. Increases are worked at the beginning, at the end, and in the center, and that's what creates the triangle shape. And then to change color, I'm going to review how to do that as well. So there's three different ways of changing colors. One of them is wrong. And I'm going to go over all 3 ways so that way you can see what it looks like if you do it wrong, just so that it's always nice to know. And first of all, beginning the shawl, it's telling us to wrap A around our index finger and insert hook. It's going through a lot of explanations there, but what it wants you to do is it wants you to make the magic ring. So I'm going to just demonstrate how to do the magic ring. And that comes in handy for lots of different projects. So for the magic ring, just lay out your yarn. It's basically a slip knot. And you lay it out like this. So here is my short piece, which is going to turn into the tail for finishing. And here is my long piece, which is connected to my working yarn. So that's the long piece. You take the short piece over the long piece, so short over long, and you lay it out in a little loop like that. You put your hand in the center of the loop and you reach under. You're going to hold on to the tail, and then you're going to pull that loop through and make a slip knot. Now, what makes this, what you really want to be careful is you want to make sure that your short piece, your tail, is what controls the slip knot, because what we're going to do is we're going to work into this slip knot, and then we're going to be able to pull our tail and pull it really tight, and that'll give us a nice, neat finish. So you want to be able to use the tail to pull it tight. So I'm going to demonstrate that one more time, and if you have questions, we'll do it again. So lay it out like this. Lay your short piece, your short tail over your long. So short over long. Make a loop, make a circle, rough circle. Put your hand in the middle of that loop. Reach under. Hold on to the tail because you don't want it to pull through. And then grab your short piece. Bring it back through the loop. And then just kind of cinch everything tight. And that is going to give us a loop, a slip knot. But the main thing we're looking for is that the tail is what controls how big that slip knot is. All right. Do you want to see that again, or does that make sense? Is it pretty good? Any questions? Looks good. Okay. And if you don't do it right, then it's not going to be the end of the world. So don't let something like that, stop you from progressing. Just, it's just kind of a best practice situation. So row 1 with A, and I'm using the blue as my A. It wants me to chain 3, and chaining 3 counts as my first double crochet. And that's going to be something we want to remember throughout this pattern. All patterns are not like that. So for this pattern, the chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, the chain 3 counts as my double crochet. And I'm going to try to maintain my magic ring. So there's my ring, and you can see when I pull it, it wants to get smaller. So I'm going to kind of use my finger to hold it open so I can work into that. So you don't want to, it's easy to kind of lose it. If it pulls shut, you kind of lose where it was. But we're going to try to maintain that for our project, just for the beginning, okay? So maintaining the magic ring, I chained 3. That counts as my first double crochet. And I'm going to do 2 double crochets. So just to review the double crochet. So for a double crochet, you yarn over, enter, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So yarn over, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through, oops. This yarn's a little splitty, so you do have to be careful not to split it. And then it wants me to chain 2, and then do 3 double crochet. So 1. Make sure you're doing it in that magic ring. So I don't know about you, but the first row, whenever I'm starting a project, the first row or 2 are always very fiddly. Okay, so now here's the magic. I'm going to pull my tail, pull it tight, and you can see how that closes it up. It cinches it up very tight. If we want to, we can bring it back open if we ever needed to, but we're not going to need to. We're just going to keep that tight. And then when you weave in your ends at the finish, you'll be able to. So let me show you if you could see that. So you can still pull it back open if you needed to for some reason, but if you hold it and pull it very tight, it cinches it up, and then you don't have any like little opening there, so which makes it nice. So that is the first row, and then it does instruct you to pull the tail to close that up. And now it wants me to chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then turn my work. Oops. Okay. Any questions about how to work that first row, how to work into the magic loop, and how to pull it closed? Pretty basic. Once you do it, I think you'll understand it really well. Okay. Doesn't look like much yet, but it does work into something pretty quick. So it wants me to chain 3, turn, double crochet in the first stitch. Now I want to explain something here. So there's my first stitch. So right here, if you look down on top of it, you can kind of see that V shape, which is your first stitch. And this counts as an increase. Now the reason this counts as an increase is because the chain 3 on the side counts as a stitch. So I have 2 double crochets here. That chain 3 is going to be a double crochet and then my double crochet. So that's why it counts as an increase. So if you're new to crochet, that might seem a little confusing, but just remember, if that first one counts as a stitch, then it counts as an increase. Okay. So we're going to double crochet in the next 2 double crochet. Until you get to the center. Now it's always easy to remember where the center is with this project because you're going to have this chain 2 space in the center. So whenever you get to this big chain 2 space, you're going to always remember that is the center. And when you get there, what you're going to do is you're going to do 2 double crochet in that chain 2 space. So 2 double crochet. Two double crochet, chain 2, and that creates the chain 2 space for the next row, and then 2 double crochet in that same chain 2 space, and that is going to help make your triangular shape. And as we work the end of this row, you'll see that we're already starting to get that. And then we're going to do a double crochet in each one. Oops. Okay. Okay. And then the end of this row, it wants us to put 2 double crochet in the top of the beginning chain 3. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to show you how to mark that with a stitch marker, which will help you keep track of it. So here, I'll tease it out a little bit so we can see it. Here is my chain 3. So I'm going to put 2 double crochet, and that counts as my increase for the other end. So 2 double crochet on the end, chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to lay my work down right here, and I want to explain just a few little things as we go forward. So you can see it's already trying to shape into a triangle. So it's kind of like an arrowhead shape right now, kind of like almost like a semicircle. But as we keep increasing, we're going to increase. We're going to do 2 stitches here. We're going to do 2 here, our chain space, chain 2 space, 2 here, and then do 2 on the end. That's going to force it to turn into a triangle. So if you know anything about geometry, that probably makes perfect sense to you. I was never good in geometry, but it still actually does make sense to me. So I think it's something that's pretty logical, and it will create a triangular shape. I mean, not like a perfect, I mean, it's soft yarn, so it's not going to be like a stiff, rigid triangle, but it will give us a nice shape. Couple of options here. It wants us to do a chain 3, and that counts as our double crochet for the next one. Now, when I'm making a shawl, I've made several shawls, and what I've noticed is when I'm making that, let me show you on this finished shawl what it looks like. So on this finished one, so what I've done for class right now is just basically right here. And whenever you do a chain 3 to start your row, you're creating this edge. And then when you finish the other side and you're doing your 2 double crochets in the chain 2 space, that's what creates this edge as well, because you're going back and forth. So this edge is created by your first stitches and your last stitches. And what I've noticed, and this might be just me, just the way I crochet, is sometimes this edge gets a little tight and it doesn't want to have a nice drape. Sometimes it feels really too tight. And what I do as a personal choice, instead of chaining 3, I will go ahead and chain 4, just to give myself a little extra drape along that edge, because I don't like it to feel stiff. And then my last stitch on my very other side, when I go back around, instead of a double crochet, I will do a triple, just to give that edge that little bit of extra room and a little bit of extra drape. Now that's just something that I do that works for me. It might not work for you, but if you do notice that the edge of your shawl tends to be very tight, you can do that. Think about trying that, and that might give you a little extra room. So that's just a little kind of, I always like to pass on little tips and tricks that I figure out. Okay. All right. So I did a chain 4, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a stitch marker right on that chain 4. And then when I come back around the next time, I will see that stitch marker and I will know exactly where I am. And I don't always do that for myself, but if you're new at crocheting, or if you don't easily recognize that chain 3 space, or chain 4, I'm sorry, that chain 4 or chain 3, the top stitch, that might help you. Okay. So now we're on row 3, and we're still working with A, which is the same color. It's instructing us to chain 3. I did a chain 4, turn, double crochet in the first stitch, double crochet in the next stitch. Let me show you here on this, because there is an asterisk, something to point with. So double crochet in the first stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and then there is an asterisk. So whenever there's an asterisk, that usually means that we're going to repeat something, but always pay attention whenever there's any kind of punctuation. We're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and then you're going to repeat from the asterisk to the center chain 2 space. And then we're going to work the center chain 2 space, which is always 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet in that center chain 2 space. And then we're going to work the other side. So let me show you how to do that. Very easy. So do a double crochet in that first stitch. Double crochet in the second stitch. Chain 1. And so the next stitch is right here. Skip the next stitch. So if you will look at the top of your work, you can see there's little V shapes. Or if you look at the side, you can kind of see, the little sides right there. So we're going to skip the next one, do a double crochet in the one after that, double crochet, chain 1, skip the next one, and then double crochet. And what that is giving us, kind of starting this decorative eyelet right here. And then we're going to get to the center. And so for this pattern in the center, we're always going to do 2 double crochet, chain 2, and then 2 double crochet, always in the center.
Question on that center stitch, Darren.
Let me lay it down here so we can look at it together. Okay. Question.
Since you are such a big fan of stitch markers, would you recommend putting a stitch marker in that center space?
I didn't need to because it is such a big hole. So you can see right from the beginning, it's a nice big hole and it's very easy to see it, but you certainly could put a stitch marker in the center. And then you just, of course, have to move every time you get to it. And if you're starting the shawl out, I think that might be a good idea. And once you kind of get into it, you might not need to continue with that. It's so easy to see that center. And it does turn into quite a prominent center point fairly quick. So, but always a stitch marker. If you're ever like thinking, oh, if I use a stitch marker, that might make it easy, then try it because stitch markers almost always make things easier, in my opinion. But it's just so easy to see that one. I didn't need to, but you might want to. Okay, anything else?
I just thought that would probably be helpful for the first few rows so you can easily
Yeah, for
find
the
that
first few
center.
rows, yeah. For the first few rows, it might actually be advisable. So, and then, so let's look at our pattern. To the beginning. Okay, so in the center, so now it's giving us a double asterisk here. And the reason it's doing that is because it wants to be able to refer back to starting at this point, and it does not want to confuse you this one. So we're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead. In the center, chain 2 space, and then we're going to double crochet in the next stitch. And then we're going to chain 1, skip the next stitch, double crochet in the next stitch, and repeat from the double asterisk. Sorry. Let me show you how to do that. So the very next stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. Chain 1, skip the next one, chain 1, skip, oops, skip the next one, go in here, and then do two double crochet in that last chain space. Or not, I'm sorry, it's not a chain space. I keep saying chain space. The chain space is actually here and here. So this is a chain 1 space, and this is our chain 2 space. And I keep saying chain space, but I don't mean chain space back here. I just mean in the top of our chain. So where we chain 3 or 4 for that edge, we want to do 2 double crochets in the top of that chain. So I've said it incorrectly now twice, so I'll try to be careful. So I'm going to do a double crochet. And then for my personal tension and the way that I am, I guess, I like to do a triple in that last one. If I'm doing a double crochet, I'll go ahead and do a triple in that last one, just to give my edge a little softness and to help give it a little nicer drape. And that's just something I like to do. So you can follow the pattern or you can do it that way. Okay. So now I finished my row. My triangle is starting to be a little more pronounced. Let's see where I'm supposed to be. So now it wants me to change to color B, right? So I'm going to show you how to change to another color. Some projects, you don't have to cut your yarn. You can carry them up the side. But with this one, I found you're changing colors on different sides and you're going several rows before you change the color again. So unfortunately, there are going to be several ends to weave in when you're finished the project, but I found it best to go ahead and cut my yarn and not really carry it up the side. So I'm going to change my color. So I'm going to go back and unravel. So I'm going to unravel this triple crochet so I can show you how to do it. So I'm going to do my triple crochet. And I'm not going to quite finish it though. So I'm going to do 2. So whenever you're changing the color and whatever type crochet you're working, double, triple, half double, you always work it until just the last step. So my last step would be to yarn over and pull through the last 2. So you don't want to do that with your old color. You want to pick up your new color and finish that with the new color. And now I'm going to chain 4. Or chain 3 or chain 4, whichever you're deciding is best for you. And what happens is you get a nice clean color change. So this blue kind of finishes off nicely, and then the white starts right off at the edge of this blue, and you don't have a lot of overlap. You get a nice clean stripe. So that's one way of doing it. Now I'm going to do it wrong. So go ahead and finish. I finished my stitch with my old color. Now I'm going to add my new color and chain 3, 2, 3. I'm going to do a chain 4. I'm going to lay it out here. I'm going to tighten everything up so that it looks. And what you get, and it's not a horrible situation, I'm sure you've had worse things happen, but you get this blue, this one blue stitch that goes up, and that becomes part of that new row. And so you don't get a really nice clean stripe. Not sure how well that's showing up. Bring it higher. So you can see that blue kind of becomes part of the next row, that little blue. I mean, it's not a horrible thing, but you know, you've had worse happen. We're just going to try to do it the best we can. And here's another way of doing it. I'm going to go ahead and finish. I'm going to just do a double here this time as the pattern instructs. But I've cut my yarn and I'm just going to pull it out just like I'm finished. So, you know, we finished the row, I've cut my yarn, and I finished my stitch. And now I'm going to join this new color. I'm going to join it with a slip stitch. And this is an option. The first way I showed you is probably the best option, but I like to have options. So I'm going to do my chain 4. Let's lay this out and look at it. Once you pull everything tight, weave in these ends later, it will look a lot better. And so see this way, pull it kind of tight. So you're also getting a pretty clean stripe right here. You're not really having any blue go up into that. So 3 different ways of doing it. One of them is technically wrong, just so you can kind of see. Sometimes if you see the wrong way, that helps you to understand what the right way looks like. Sometimes a little better. Okay. Any questions about changing color? Do we want to see that again? Sorry, I'm trying to get my. That's good. There we go. Any questions?
No questions on the color change so far. I'll give you a time check and say we're at about halfway through class right now.
Okay, so let me see where I am. So we changed to color B, chain 3, turn, double crochet in the first stitch, double crochet in each stitch across, and each chain space. So just quickly double crochet in the first stitch, that counts as our increase. Double crochet in each stitch across. And then when you get to the chain one space, it's easy. You just enter that space, just like it's a great big open stitch, and you double crochet in there. And then you double crochet on top of this double crochet. And then this chain space, it's just like a nice big open stitch. It makes it super easy. You just go right in there and you can work whatever stitch you're supposed to. In this case, it's double crochet. All right, so I'm gonna put this one aside. Any questions about anything we've done so far at all? That's how you kind of get started and get going. Okay, so, and then so this jumps me up to row 5. Let me get these stitch markers out of my way. Let me raise this up a little bit. I keep sorry. So for row 5, it's having you change to color C, and my color C is this gray. And so we've already reviewed how to change color, so I'm ready to get started. So row 5 with color C, chain 3 and turn, double crochet in the first stitch, chain 1 and skip the next stitch. So double crochet in the first one, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then we're going to do what's called a 2 double crochet cluster in the next stitch. Now that is, we're going to go back to one of our first pages where it gives the stitch explanations, and it tells us 2 double crochet cluster, and it gives you the step-by-step directions on how to do that. Also, underneath that, it has a 3 double crochet cluster, which we'll get to in a little bit, and it gives you the step-by-step instructions on how to do that one. So let me show you how to do the 2 double crochet cluster. So you enter the, start with a yarn over, enter the stitch, wrap your yarn, bring it up, wrap your yarn, bring it through 2, and we're not going to finish it. If you're going to do a normal double crochet, you'd wrap your yarn and bring it through 2 again. So you wrap your yarn, enter the stitch, bring up another one, bring it through 2, wrap your yarn, and then bring it through the remaining on the hook. Do a chain 1, skip the next stitch, yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up 1, yarn over, pull it through 2, yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring it through 2, yarn over, bring it through the remaining ones. Do a chain 1, skip the next stitch, and so we're just going to start a double crochet, but we're not going to finish it. Yarn over, enter in the same stitch, yarn over, bring up a loop, bring it through 2, yarn over, bring it through all. And that creates this little, kind of a little cluster. Any questions on how I did that? Were you able to see it? How we doing?
We did have a request to repeat that, but that was just after the first time, so maybe we saw it enough.
Well, let's do it again. So do a chain 1, skip the next stitch, so yarn over, enter the stitch, bring it up, yarn over, bring it through 2. So we're not going to finish our double. We're going to yarn over, enter the same stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring it through 2, yarn over, bring it through all, chain 1, skip the next stitch, and then enter from there. So once you get in the rhythm of it, it's actually quite easy. Okay, makes sense? And that creates this kind of little, it's a small little cluster, and it kind of creates a little eyelet as you're going. So any questions on how to do it or where to find that information?
I've got a question for you when you get to the end of the row.
Okay, let's get to the end. Go ahead and tell me the question.
Joanne says, and it's a good question, at the end of each row, the pattern gives you a stitch count. And could you show how to go back and double check your stitches to make sure that you're correct?
Yes. Although I don't always do that. Probably the best practice is to do it. But
You like to crochet dangerously, huh?
yeah, as long as things look right, I tend not to worry about so much. Oops, messed that one up. Any other questions while we're getting to the end?
Nothing so far.
You know what I'm going to do? Let's put that aside. Let's go to this next little sample I have worked up. So if you're going to count, and depending on what row you're on or where you are, so this is row 9. I'm getting ready to start row 9, I think, with this one. So at the end of row, it says row 6, and then row 7 and 8 are going to be the same. So with row 7 and 8, you're going to be with A, you chain 3, you turn, and basically you're just double crocheting in each stitch until you get to the center. And then at the end of that, it says 24 double crochet on each side of the center, chain 2 space in row 8. Now you're going to make me count these to see if I was right. That's what's going to happen, Claire?
Correct.
So, all right. So just, I want to tell you, they might not be right because when I was working up these swatches, I was just working them up really fast. I knew they would never be a project, so I probably didn't count them very carefully. So my chain at the beginning counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I lost track. So there's 2 here. So 1, 2. So we know we have 2 in our chain 2 space right here on each side. So 1, 2. You can count them also here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. I only have 22, but I will tell you, if this was the actual shawl I was working on, I would probably leave it. I don't really, it looks right to me. This edge even looks right. I would probably leave it, but you would be more than happy to go back and rip it out and figure out where you've made that mistake. But the way you,
Joanne has a good follow-up question. What if the stitch count on the other side is different?
well, then it could be slightly asymmetrical. Um, Maybe I'm slightly asymmetrical. You know, I feel like I'm a little asymmetrical, so you know, it might balance out. But you're right. If it is different on the other side, it's not going to be 100% um, like a perfect triangle. But you know, this is where you can make decisions about how you live your life. You could rip that out until you get back to the where your stitch count is right. But for me, with being two stitches off, I would probably leave it and then just kind of keep an eye on it as I'm going to make sure it still looks nice. And then at the end, when you block your work, you can, because this bamboo yarn is it's very, you know, drapey, and you can get a nice block out of it. You can block it to the exact measurements that you want it to be. So you can kind of make up the difference there. But would you rip it out, Claire, or would you leave it?
If it was just one stitch, I would probably leave it and sort of fudge that stitch later. But for two stitches, I would probably rip it out.
Without. So it depends. If I were doing Fair Isle or a lace pattern, I would rip it out. But for something like this, I would probably leave it. But just so that we understand how to count them, two different ways. You can find these little kind of V shapes or chains along the edge and count these. So we've got these two in the center. Um, they don't really count, right? This is, we should have double crochets. So they're not really double crochets. So you these. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's how you can do it. Or you can count your posts right here. So 1, 2, 3. If I lay, can you see? I can put, is it better with white under it or not? If you kind of pull it out, maybe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can either count your posts, which is this, or if you notice on the top of each one of those posts, you're going to have this little shape, which looks like a knit stitch. If you're a knitter, you'll recognize that almost looks like a knit stitch. But that's how you count it. Do we understand how to count it? Do we understand what we're looking at for counting it?
I think so. I see some thumbs up there.
Okay, good. Yeah, so you know what you decide about your stitch count once you get it is your personal choice. But as long as as long as you're able to count it and get an accurate count, that is the most important thing you want to pay attention to, right? So at the beginning of row 9, with B, we're going to chain 3, turn, double crochet in the first stitch, and then a 3 double crochet cluster in the next stitch. So I had this here just kind of holding it so it wouldn't unravel. I think it's better without that. You let me know if it's better with or without that white paper in the back. Well, I'm working with white yarn, it's probably not good to have it there. So double crochet in the first stitch. And then 3 double crochet cluster in the next one. So this is almost exactly the same, only just one extra. So yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. So like you're going to do a double crochet, you don't finish it. Yarn over through the same one. So the most important thing is you're doing this in the same stitch. You want to do it loose enough, so bring it up so that everything's nice. You want to bring that through 2. So a third time, yarn over, same stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, bring it through 2, yarn over, bring it through all 4, and then chain 1. Skip the next one, yarn over, enter the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. Okay, stop here. Yarn over, enter the same stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull it through 2. Okay, stop here, and then we're going to yarn over, enter the same stitch for the 3rd time, yarn over, pull it through 2, and then yarn over, pull it through all 4, and then do a chain 1. And that's what creates that little cluster. Any questions about that? Questions? Okay, how's everyone doing?
I think we're doing pretty good
Pretty
here.
good?
Yes.
Okay, let me check my notes and see if I'm covering everything. All right, I think we're making pretty good time. We've got about 15 minutes left, really, don't we? Okay. Let me take this one away. All right. And then once you finish all of your clusters, I've got them almost all finished here. What happens is you get this really pretty design. And then the next, so row 9, the one I was just working on, is this row of white clusters. And then the next row is the blue one, and you end up working the blue clusters into that chain space. So that way they're kind of, instead of stacked on top of each other, they're kind of staggered. So does that make sense? Can you see how? And then the gray ones are working in the chain space of the blue. Does that make sense how that's done?
It looks a little bit like how you might do a traditional granny square, kind of.
It pretty much is basically, if you've ever worked a granny square, it's real similar to that. Not quite exactly the same, but similar.
Yeah, because you're just using the clusters instead of the 3 individual double crochets.
Yeah, but the same theory. So it is very, very similar to that. All right. Any questions about anything we've covered so far?
We did have a request to see the magic ring again, but I know we have to get to the lace edging first. So
Okay, so the lace edging, it's actually, when I first started the lace edging, I thought this doesn't sound right, but it actually, if you trust the pattern, it actually works. All right. So the lace edging, so it looks like, it's kind of deceiving because it looks like you're creating this, like, how are you creating this kind of crazy shape? Really, you're not. It just kind of creates itself. So what we're doing here, this is just a straight edge, which is kind of like this straight edge. And then you're doing a double crochet, you chain 5, and then you skip 5 stitches, and then you do a double crochet. You chain 5, skip 5 stitches, and then you do a double crochet. Chain 5, skip 5 stitches, and do a double crochet. And then when it hangs, the weight of it kind of creates this kind of fluted or scalloped edge, and it looks a lot more complicated than what it actually is in real life. So I'm going to show you how to do that. And then the next row, you just kind of connect it. And we'll go through that step by step. So I just want you to kind of see what it looked like, what we're getting into. So I'm going to use the blue, and that starts on row 45. So I'm going to attach my new color this way. And I'm going to do my chain. Oops. Do chain 4 because I like to have that little extra give along the edge. Double crochet in the first stitch. So double crochet the first stitch. Okay, double crochet in the first stitch. Double crochet in the next stitch. Chain 5, skip the next 5 stitches, and then double crochet in the next stitch. So chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and try not to do it tight. I like to give a little extra slack in those, and then skip the next 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then double crochet in the last one. Oops, there we go. Chain 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Skip 5. 1, 2, 3. Wait a second, where am I? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do 1. And one thing you want to make sure is that it's laying flat. So every now and then lay it out like this and make sure you're not doing it too tight. Because if you're pulling it really tight, you don't want it to cause it to bunch up. So make sure you're laying it out and it's able to lay flat. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that one. Just split my yarn. Yeah, this yarn tends to split a little easy, but that's because it has such a loose ply. That's one thing that gives it such a soft hand. So it's a very, very soft yarn with a very soft drape.
You're wandering off the edge of the frame there, Darren.
Sorry. Yes, that's something I tend to do. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So go right in there. And now to my chain, 2 space. So we're going to do our 2 double crochet and our chain 2, our 2 double crochet. And then you would just finish this other row the same way, but I'm going to pretend I finished it just for the sake of saving some time. I'm going to do my chain 3, pretend just don't watch what I'm doing. I just want to work the second row of this lace so that you can see it, but I don't want to waste everyone's time. Get back to my center. So you wouldn't do this in your project. I'm just trying to save a little time. Okay, so I'm going to do my 2, working my center, 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet. Okay. Stop right here. I'm going to look back, refer back to my pattern. So what it's having me do is chain 3. So 1, 2, 3, and then do a single crochet in the chain 5 space. So space that out right about in the center of it. You're not attaching it to, you're just kind of looping it around. And then chain 3, and then a double crochet on top of this double crochet. Let me double check that. Okay, chain 3. Yeah. So then double crochet on top of the double crochet. Chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then single crochet. So you don't yarn over to do a single crochet. You've been doing all these double crochets, so if you're like me, you're going to want to yarn over at the beginning of every stitch because you've just been used to it. But try to be careful not to. So chain 3, yarn over, and then double crochet. Chain 3. So it's chain 3, single crochet, chain 3, and then double crochet. Oops. Sometimes it's hard to get it in there. But are there any questions about this row as I'm struggling with this stitch? Okay, there we got it. No, I didn't get it. Any questions?
Not on this row, and I did want to remind everybody it is just about the end of class time. We'll stick around, cover the few questions that we've had so far, but just a reminder that we were recording this class and you'll be able to watch it starting probably tomorrow afternoon on michaels.com/classes or on the Michaels YouTube channel. So if you needed to go back and watch anything, you can stop and pause as many times as you need.
Okay.
And then our 2 questions, Darren, we're sort of back towards the beginning. We had that question about wanting to do the magic ring again. and how to do the first color change method.
All right, so magic ring. And there, if you don't, I mean, if the way I'm doing it doesn't like make perfect sense to you, there are lots of videos online on how to do it. So I certainly did not invent this. So lots of opportunities for research. But the way I like to do it is if you lay your yarn out like this, so lay your tail over top of your working yarn. So lay the short piece over the long piece, or lay the tail over your working, your working yarn. Put your hand in the center of that circle, go under, kind of sneak under it, hold on to the tail, and then pull a loop back through and cinch it up. Now this is, all this is tying a slip knot. This is just a slip knot, but you want to tie it in such a way that the tail is what's controlling how big that loop is. Because then once we start working with it, if your working yarn is what's controlling it, once we've worked stitches all through that, you're not going to be able to use that to pull it tight. But once we've worked stitches into that ring, if your tail is what's controlling the size, then you're going to be able to pull that tight and cinch it up nicely. So really that's all it is a slip knot that the tail adjusts the size of that ring. And one way of getting that, there's more than one way, but one way of getting that is if you lay it out like this with the tail over the working yarn, so short over long, put your hand inside the circle. You want to hold on to this because you don't want the tail to pull through. And you're going to pull a loop through and then cinch it up and then just test it. Make sure that the tail is what is controlling the size. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that covered it.
Okay. And then let me see if I have a good place for. So the actual proper way, really, of changing colors is, so I'm going to do a double crochet. So bring it up, bring it through two, and then a double crochet, you would bring it through two again. But I'm not going to finish that stitch. I'm going to save that last step for this new color. And then I'm going to pull the new color through and then start with the new color. So doing a chain 3 or chain 4, whatever you opt on. And that gives you a seamless color change. Let me show you again. So if you're doing a double crochet, so I'm going to do 2 double crochets on my chains, on the top of my chain. So do 1 double crochet. I'm going to do the whole thing. Bring it through 2, bring it through 2, double crochet. You yarn over, bring it through 2. I'm sorry, bring it through 2 here. And then to finish it, you'd bring it through 2, but that last step, that last bringing it through 2, you're going to do it with the new color. And then do your chain with the new color. And then once you pull all these tight and weave in your ends, you'll see it gives you a nice clean stripe right there. Does that help? Any questions about that? Is it better without the light? Does that help? Is that good?
I think that's good.
Okay, so if there's no more questions, thanks for coming to class. If you do have questions later on, you can always contact me on either Instagram or TikTok. My screen name on there is Mr. Woolly Bear. It's spelled out M-I-S-T-E-R, Woolly Bear. Maybe Claire will put it in the chat quickly. Or on Facebook, you can just find my name, and I try to get back to people as quick as I can. So I hate to leave you like in a lurch. If you need a question answered, feel free to send me a message. So, all right, anything else?
I'm going to put the link to the pattern and the pattern PDF in the Zoom chat here one more time. But if you need it, the pattern is available on michaels.com, and this is the Melrose Shawl.
Okay. All right. Keep practicing. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks for coming to class.